Today we're talking to Jade Hindle, a senior merchandise planner with almost 15 years experience. Jade has worked in the UK with New Look and Debenhams and in Australia for the iconic Michael Hill and Super Retail Group. Welcome, Jade.
Hi, Beverly. It's so lovely to talk to you today about merchandise planning.
So look, let's go straight into it. For those who don't know, what is the role of the merchandise planner and how do they work with the buyer?
Okay, well, the merchandise planner is often referred to the person who is responsible for getting the right stock in the right place at the right time. So that is in like pretty generic overview that is known within the industry. However, there's so much more to merchandise planning than that. So a merchandise planner's role is really to do the more of the numerical side of buying and planning. So it really is to understand like what is the right places to invest our money and to get the best result from a financial point of view.
You're really trying to increase profit then?
Yes, that is exactly what we're trying to do. Trying to increase profit and reduce cost whilst delivering the needs and desires of the customer.
Okay, so typically, who works in the merchandise planning team, and what is the difference in their roles?
This can vary from company to company. So in the UK, I worked on in New Look as a assistant planner on denim, and there was a team of I think 5 of us who just did denim. We were at the time doing millions of units, so that was a pretty big team for just one area. Usually what you would have is a allocator or an MAA, which is a merchandise assistant, admin assistant, sorry. Then you would have an assistant planner, potentially a senior assistant planner, a planner, and then potentially a planning manager. So the allocator and the MAA is dealing with ensuring that each store has the optimum level of stock and that the communication with the suppliers and the intake is all managed efficiently. The assistant planner would usually have more responsibility in terms of ordering the stock, making sure that all the key lines were fully replenished, whilst the planner and the planning manager would be working together on the strategic direction of the business. So if, for instance, dresses were on trend, they would be looking at maximizing the dress category within the business and potentially like cutting back on skirts and tops.
So what is this thing called the Wysi, and how is it used by retailers?
So the Wysi, it is definitely something that is used in merchandise planning by a number of businesses. I would say it's pretty much a standard tool across most organizations. It stands for weekly sales, stock and intake. And what it is used for is to give a forward view of your inventory, sales and margin position. So one of the key aspects of a planning role is to really analyze the data and to steer the business in the right direction going forward. So as a planner, I'm constantly looking at like where we are today and where we want to go forward, plus understanding the history to take the lessons to drive us in the right direction. So the Wysi is the main tool that is used in order to help facilitate that process.
And in your roles, you've worked both on in the pure play online area, and you've worked for businesses that have a high store portfolio. What are the differences in planning for like online only businesses, say like the iconic, and retailers with stores?
So for me, the main difference is that when you work for an online business, you don't have the complication of stores. I feel like there's huge benefits having to both businesses. So working just with an online portfolio at the iconic was hugely beneficial because you had so much more opportunity to test and learn product because you could buy such small quantities and get a great read from your customer. With stores, you have to be a bit more considered in how you escalate product to your customer base and what is the right customer base to send it to. So for instance, you wouldn't be looking to send winter thick coats to Queensland, whereas in Victoria, that would be the perfect thing to send them. So you have to be really considered from a geographical point of view. Whereas online, you just have your assortment, and then it's how you then allow your customer to filter and search on your website that will drive those decision-making processes.
It sounds like an incredibly complex role, is it?
I'm very passionate about planning. I have, as you said, been in planning for almost 15 years. I love it. I love working alongside a buyer, coming up with strategies, understanding our customer, and working out what is the right thing for the business. I would say that it's a very considered role, and there are elements that require a lot of analytical skills, as well as problem solving and decision making. I wouldn't say that it's like overly complicated, but there's definitely a, like, not a science to it, but there's a flair.
So what would you say were the key skills and attributes that make a great planner then?
Well, so I would say a love of planning, someone who's definitely somebody who likes to kind of probably make lists and is considered in how they go forward. Someone who likes Excel is probably a very good attribute to have as a planner. There is very varying degrees of systems throughout companies. Some have great systems where potentially Excel skills aren't as needed. But I found throughout my whole career that having good Excel skills is really a bonus in terms of being able to analyze data and come up with decisions. Yes, I think those are it. Like, if you like to interpret data and if you like to go through numbers and come up with outcomes, planning is definitely a great role for you. If you don't like spreadsheets or you don't like numbers, this is probably not your area.
Is attention to detail important?
Yes, definitely. So attention to detail is very important, mostly because we're looking at so much data, and you need to understand the stories that the data is telling you and what is our customer telling us.
So it sounds like no 2 days are ever alike. What does a typical week look like?
Oh, well, so yes, no 2 days are ever the same. And sometimes you could have a day planned that turns out totally different. From a week point of view, I'd say Monday is always trade. So you're analyzing how you performed against your targets for the previous week, how you performed versus last year. At the moment, obviously, majority of retailers are up against quite different sales to last year because of COVID.
Yeah.
So taking those sort of things in and understanding what that means to your business today is very key. So Monday would be trade, and really is analyzing your business from top to bottom. And then during the week, it would be going back to your critical path and understanding at what point in the critical path you're at. So from the start of the season, you kind of go through a whole process from analyzing your previous season to coming up with your strategies and concept going forward, and then getting to the point where you're actually placing your product. And then that's a continuous cycle. So the rest of the week is really looking at what part you are, where you are with your critical path, and what needs to be actioned that week.
That sounds great. So Jade, my final question I like to ask all my interviews this: what would be your advice to someone who was wanting to start out in merchandise planning today?
I started off in stores, and I found that gave me a really great foundation to then go into head office. So if you can get store experience and understand the retail market, that's a really great place to start. Other than that, just reach out to companies, find out like what opportunities they have for entry level. Like, I started off in the UK on a graduate scheme at Debenhams. Other than having store experience, I didn't really have much experience at all. So I learned everything on the job. It's like a really great career to get into, and it has a lot of opportunities. So I've been very fortunate that I started in London, worked in London for 7 years, and then got a job over in Australia at the Iconic. So I would say do it. If you think that this is a career for you, and that you think that that you are like on the analytical side, I think that there's a lot of opportunity.
Well, Jade, thank you very much for your time today. There's some really great insights there, and we wish you luck with your future endeavours.
Thank you very much, Beverly. It's lovely to talk to you.